Hey everybody, Patty Ann here. Today I'm going to start the sew along. Now I kind of said it was going to be live, but right now today my internet's giving me a little bit of trouble. Maybe it's because we had bad storms last night. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I'm going to do this as a recording and then I'll watch it along with you in case you have any questions or anything. But while you're watching it, whether as the replay or watching it live-ish, please, tell me where you're from. I'd love to find that out, where everybody's stitching this thing. And anyway, let's get started. Oh, by the way, remember in the other day's live, I showed you how my friend Rachel at the quilt shop taught me how to put everything in baggies. So I have block A and all of its parts in a baggie, block B, block C, and I even have the backing and the tabs. So this is going to hopefully help me stay organized. Thanks, Rachel, for your tips. Anyway, we're going to start this one. So I said I'm going to do the 5x7 size. And again, if you saw the live, I showed you how I kind of circle the one that I'm going to do. And then I cut all those pieces out. And for the stabilizer, you'll notice up here it says no show mesh cutaway. So hopefully we're going to start with block A, and I'm going to go step by step through these instructions. So if you've purchased this, you can download yours and look at it or print it out. Sorry, it's a little bit blurry. Whoops. But I'm going to go step by step with this, and I'll show you how it's done. So this is going to be really good for you, especially if you're a beginner. I think you'll really enjoy making this. So let's get started. I'll start in Embrilliance because I'm going to show you the stitch simulator and just the parts that we're going to be doing for block A, the top. So let's go. Okay, I've brought in the image, and as you can see, or the design right off the bat, there's an issue with it. Look at this red bar down here. That tells me you do not have the right size hoop for this. So if you look here, I actually have the 4x4 hoop. So I need to come up here to Preferences and change it so that it's at my 5x7 hoop. And I didn't relabel this one, so I think it's that one. Yep, it's the 130 millimeters by 180. And again, I can change that, so I am going to do that because I like to say edit, and then when this comes up, put 5x7 right in front of it and say okay. And see how it says 5x7 now? Makes it much easier for me. And apply. Okay, now this little bar down here is yellow, which gives us a new indication. That means the design's going to fit, but the orientation of the frame or the hoop is wrong. So I can either change the orientation of the hoop or I can change the orientation of the design. I'll just change the hoop by double clicking right here, oopsie, right here. And that changed the orientation of the hoop. Notice when I clicked over here what it did. It changed it from millimeters, and if I double click again it goes back to inches. Okay, but I wanted to change the orientation of the hoop like that. Alright, so now if we come over here to the objects panel, you can see there's a lot of objects in here, right? Okay, so over here it shows step number 1 for stitching. But before we can do step number 1 for stitching, of course, we need to load our cutaway stabilizer into our hoop. So that's actually step number 1. As you can see, I already have my no-show mesh cutaway stabilizer hooped. I've got my design over here and I'm ready to go. I'm going to look at my directions for block A, and it says step number 1, load your stuff. Step number 2, stitch the placement line for the batting. So I'm on this step. I'm going to, whoopsie, open my machine up and go ahead and stitch the placement stitch for my batting. And this is why I love having everything in the blocks, because I'm ready to go. Everything I need for this block is right here, and I don't have to get confused at all. So when that is done stitching, I'm going to take my batting and place it right over top of that. And step number 2 does say, or step number 3 actually says, cover placement line with batting, making sure all sides are completely covered. Stitch tack down line, and then trim the batting as I'll show you. So I'm going to bring this out like this, and you probably can't see this line of stitching, but I can. So I'm going to make sure that my batting goes right over top of it and covers all of it. Push this back in here, and this is now going to tack down the batting. And again, after it tacks down the batting, I'm going to take it out and trim the batting close to the stitching lines. Okay, it's stitching the placement, or stitch the placement line for the batting, then it stitched the tack down line for the batting. Now I'm going to take it out and I'm going to trim with these little curvy scissors right up close to the stitching without going through it. So I'm not taking it out of the hoop, but I am taking the hoop out of the machine so that I can get at it. Okay, another thing I like to do to keep track of where I am is I like to check off the steps as I've done them. So I'm now on step number 4, which is stitch the placement line for the bottom background fabric. So I'll hit go and do that. Okay, I'll check that off as done. And now I'll go on to step number 5, which says position the center fabric over the placement line, run tack down stitches to secure the fabric. So the fabric that I'm using, and I already have it in my little baggie, is this one right here. And I'm going to put it down on here, pretty side up, covering this like that. Put this back in. And let's see what step we're on. So we've positioned the center fabric over the placement line, and I'm going to run the tack down stitches right now. After this is done, I'm going to trim away the excess fabric as shown. So it appears when you trim away the excess fabric, you're only going to trim it here. You're going to leave these long edges down here for now. Hopefully you can see that. I'm trimming here, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so take this out, and I'm only going to trim the excess fabric up here. Okay. Up at the top. See, that leaves that extra little border there, and I'll hold it up closer for you in a sec. Okay, so you can see how that has left this extra bit of batting showing out. Okay, let's see what's next. So for 6, we trimmed away the excess fabric as shown just there. Now 7. The next few stitching steps are the quilt motif and decorative stitches for this block. So this is going to be the Let Freedom ring, the stars, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out, and I'll be back. And you can kind of tell by your machine over here what colors you're going to use, or look at the pictures to determine that. Okay, the first stitching it's going to do 2 minutes of white stitching which will be like a meander stitch. I'm doing it in white because my background is white and I just wanted to add texture. So that's the meandering stitch. Okay, next up it's going to be the word freedom and a few of these little designs right here. So I've already put my blue thread in and I'm ready to go. Okay, next up comes the red lettering. So it'll be the word ring and the stars and a few other little doodads. So you may be thinking that this isn't stitching properly, that red, but that is the way it is supposed to be. Very light stitching like that. Okay, we're on to step 8, and that could be where it begins to be just a teeny bit tricky. It says stitch the placement line for the top background fabric. Now the top background fabric was that little narrow strip that you cut that should be in your baggie. So I'm just going to go ahead and say okay for that. Oh, wait, I'm not quite there yet, I guess. I had another star. Or maybe more. I guess that one was supposed to be light blue, but I just let it be silver like the text for let. Looks like there will be one more after this right up here, a little silver star. It says to make them light blue, but I just let them be silver as I said. And it's at this point now that I could go ahead and trim all my stitches in here, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and run the step number 8, which is the placement line for the top background fabric. Now, as I said, this one's a little bit tricky, so be sure to pay attention right here if you're new to this. So I'm just going to run the stitch. Okay, now comes the part that's a tiny little bit tricky, and that is if your fabric is not like mine, but it has a right side and a wrong side, okay, it says position the fabric strip with the right side facing down. So let's pretend this is the right side of my fabric and I want it facing down like this, okay? Furthermore, I want it says, and parallel to the placement stitch, extend the fabric strip approximately 1/4 of an inch over the placement line, okay? So if you'll recall, here's the placement line right here. It says, put this right side down and have it cover up your design down here, but have this fabric be 1/4 of an inch above this placement stitch, like that. Because what you're going to do is it's going to stitch and then you're going to flip it, okay? So there's the placement, there's that, perfect, and put it back in. So I'm on step number 9 again. Position the fabric strip with the right side facing down and parallel to the placement stitch. Extend the fabric strip approximately 1/8 to 1/4 inch over the placement line. Run the tack down stitches to secure the fabric as shown. Okay, step number, well, let me X off number 9 because we're finished with that. We're on step number 10. And that says, remove the hoop from the machine, fold over the fabric, pressing the seam well with your fingers. Tape down to secure in place, and then run a tack down stitch to secure the border with the right side facing up. So what does that mean? It means take this thing out, fold this up like this along that row of stitching, and finger press it down along that line of stitching. Okay. And then it says you can tape it if you'd like this. Okay. So it doesn't move. Put it back in here. And then at this point now, I think I'm going to change to my red colored thread rather than the silver because this is going to show. And then stitch. Okay, that completes step number 10. For step number 11, stitch the decorative stitches for the top panel. Right up here, there's going to be some stars stitched. Now I need to figure out, do I want to do them in silver or white? So I'm going to look at it for a minute. I can't decide. I think I'll do them in white. Are you guys yelling silver out there? Whoa. I'm going to do white. So, thread this white. Whoopsie. Okay. And when that's done, I'll meet you back here. Okay. I finished step number 11, and 12 says remove the block from the hoop and trim away excess stabilizer. And furthermore, it says on step 13, trim the edges of the block so each side is 1 inch from the outer stitching line. So I'm going to remove this. Take a look at it first. Looking good. Remove it from the hoop. And I'll put it down here on my cutting surface. Down so you can see. Oopsie. Here, oops. Tighten that. I guess you can see that pretty well though. All right. So it says trim each side 1 inch from the last stitching line. So I'm barely able to get an inch there. Let's see. I put this on the 1 inch mark. So I'm not even able to get an inch there. So I really didn't quite do that right. Here's 1 inch. And let's do it 1 inch from this side. Okay, and 1 inch from this stitching. And 1 inch from this side. may have been able to see it. Nope. All right, I'm a little concerned about this, but I don't really think it's going to be a trouble. So let's double check our inches. That's an inch. Perfect. This right here is not, but we'll see what's going to happen. An inch. An inch. And it's hard to see this one. Let's see. Okay, an inch. Perfect. So this is how it's looking right now, and I think it's really nice. I love it. So I'm just going to trim up these extra threads that are on here, and then I'll be ready to start on block number 2 with you guys. So I hope you're keeping up. Let me know how you're doing. Thanks for joining me, you guys. Check out my links down below if you're in the market to purchase something, and I'll see you again really soon.